Hello and welcome to another Plane Truce, and this week we're going to be talking about pilot licenses and type ratings. Joining me this week, as always, in the hot seat, it is the legend that is Captain Al. Hi Captain Al, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how's your good self?
Yes, I'm very good, thank you, very good. I can't believe winter's here already. It's romping away, shall we say?
Yes, it has been.
Indeed, indeed. Right, so my question for you this week is to do with sort of basically pilot licenses. So, I mean, from what I've learned through conversations I've had with people, you sort of start doing your PPL and you work your way up to a commercial license. And then once you've got your pilot's license, for want of a better word, what happens after that? I mean, does that mean you can fly any aircraft?
That's a really good question. And the short answer to that is no. But let me elaborate.
Please do.
So you're quite right. There are a couple of avenues to pursue. So first of all, we can split off professional and non-professional license. So the private pilot's license is effectively a hobbyist license, and it doesn't allow you to charge for your services. So you need to go down the professional pilot's route for that. And here in Europe, that would be studying for the airline transport pilot's license. And initially, your qualification is frozen. So you've done all the theoretical exams. You just need the practical experience to be the commander of a transport aircraft. So transport aircraft, anything from sort of Dash 8, so, 30, 40 seat turboprop up to an A380. So to be able to sit in the left-hand seat as a captain for one of those aircraft, you need to have an unfrozen ATPL, which is a combination of experience and a go in the simulator. However, that's all fine and dandy. That's what the basic structure is, but you need to specialize. So avenues of speciality: are you going to be flying an aeroplane or a helicopter? Because they're two entirely different setups. So a helicopter license, rotary, or fixed wing aeroplane. Then you need to look at the specifics. So if an aircraft is above a certain weight, then you will need to complete a type rating course, which is very specific information associated with that aeroplane. So, for example, the Boeing 737, Dash 8, A320 all have their own type ratings, because you cannot go and fly one of those aeroplanes unless you've done this add-on training, the type rating. So, how do you go about that? Well, the type rating course is quite expensive, actually, because there's three aspects to it. There is the classroom study, which is usually done by e-learning these days. So that's learning about all of the systems: hydraulics, electrics, flight controls, etc. Then there's the simulator phase, where you go in and learn how to fly that specific aeroplane. And then finally, if you've not flown an aircraft of this size before, you have to go and do what's called base training, which is that you will actually go and take a real aeroplane and fly it around the circuit, doing practice landings, doing touch and goes, and you'll have to do those in the day and at night. And once you've completed all of that training, the aviation regulator will then allow you to fly that aircraft. So if you've done the type rating course for an A320, you can't just go and fly a 737 the next day. You've got to do the type rating course for that. And because the regulator wants you to be quite proficient in your knowledge of the aeroplane that you're flying, you can't have a whole pocket full of type ratings. They're very restricted. So, for example, you could have the A320, the A330 stroke A350, but what you can't have is current and available to be utilized on a day-by-day basis. The A320 and the 737, they're just too different. So that's how it all works.
So with that in mind then, so as you say, you've completed your PPL, you've done your commercial, all that kind of thing. Is there a sort of a natural step where you would start, certainly as far as like commercial licenses and things are concerned? I mean, or does it depend on which airline that you're attached to as to what route you go down? I mean, is there a plane that almost everyone is essentially type rated on?
Okay, so light aircraft don't have a type rating. So the
Okay.
PA-28 that I took you up in,
Yes, 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 yes.
it falls under a class category. So it's single engine piston.
Right.
So if you have that class on your license, you can fly a PA-28, a Cessna 150, Tobago, basically because they're all single engine piston. Then there are a couple of sort of bolt-ons, if you like. So if you have a retractable undercarriage or a variable speed propeller, these are little extras that you have to be signed off for. And there are a whole variety of licenses because, of course, as I mentioned to you, there's rotary, so helicopters, there's gliders, there's multi-engine piston, then there's land and sea, because obviously if you're going to go out and operate a seaplane, then there's a different category for that. And there's also balloons and airships.
Oh wow. Oh wow. And they're still classed under the same thing essentially. You still need a specific license in order to be able
Yes.
to have them
So
airborne essentially.
absolutely. So it does get slightly complicated, but to go back to your question, really, if someone is looking to progress themselves to become what we'll just class as an airline pilot, you can do it in one of two ways. You can do it modular, so you build your way up bit by bit, chunk by chunk, which is what a lot of people have done, myself included. Or you can basically go down the complete integrated path where you will do the training from beginning to end as an entire course. And some people will choose to do that and then tag onto it a university degree. So they will come out with a frozen airline transport pilot's license and a BSc in aviation management or something of that order. You mentioned about being associated with an airline. Sadly, there are very, very few airlines that will sponsor your training. So, with almost no exceptions, that's all self-funded.
Oh wow. So I mean we're talking like stupid amounts of money then essentially to get to the position that you've
Between
got to.
70 and 150,000 pounds, euros, dollars, it's all broadly the same.
Wow. Okay. In some respects, it almost explains to me why pilots are so passionate about their job because essentially they've had to literally put everything into this in order to become what they want to become.
Absolutely. I mean, there are people who have chosen to go down the integrated route. Obviously, there are lots of them. And those will be the sums of money that they've paid. For a lot of people, they're not in the position to be able to afford to do that. So they've had to go down the modular route. And that naturally tends to go into the flow of that you do some of your training and then you become an instructor. So you teach people how to fly for PPL and so forth, or maybe do some air taxi work or do some glider towing. Aerial survey work is quite popular these days. So, all those nice Google Maps and stuff are quite often done by aircraft as well as by satellite imagery.
And also there seems to be an awful lot of people who like throwing people out of aeroplanes as well. That seems to be a common amusement, shall we say, as part of
parachute dumpers. Yeah, that's another one.
I like it. I like it. Okay, I mean, just sort of getting back to what you were talking about. I mean, I know, for example, your the main aircraft that you've been flying is obviously the A320. So, does being type rated on the A320 does that mean that you can fly a range of aircraft, or is it only specifically that model? Or I mean, are there similarities between one aircraft and an Airbus product? I understand obviously it'd be very different going from Boeing to Airbus. But...
Okay, so in the airliner world, things tend to be grouped into families.
Okay.
So the A320 family covers the A318, 319, 320, and 321. The 737 family, with a little bit of sort of additional training, covers you from the 737-200 all the way up to the -800 and the max with additional training. But it's all effectively one type rating, or those are two separate type ratings, if you see what I mean. But you get the family. So in the same way as if you have the A330 family, you also get the A350 because they're broadly the same aircraft. So that's from a regulatory point of view. An airline itself for insurance reasons or safety management reasons, wouldn't just throw you in the aeroplane that you've never seen before and say, crack on, lad.
Oh, God. I'm so pleased.
So there will be some in-house training, but from the regulator's point of view, that they see enough commonality between the two. I mean, one of your favourite aeroplanes, the 757.
Oof, right, yes.
Is in the same family as the 767. So someone who flies the 75 can fly the 76 and vice versa.
Even though one is like a wide body and one's a narrow body.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So there are sufficient similarities for the regulator to say that it's close enough for us, because they know that the airlines will undertake additional training to cover the different types, if you like.
Wow. Well, as always, Al, these are fascinating subjects. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
If you'd like to watch more from our great series, then you can do that by pressing here. We've also created you a playlist with all the Plain Truth episodes, and you'll find that just here. Why not like and subscribe to our channel? That way you will be notified whenever we post our great content. Or if you've got a question that you'd like Captain Al to answer, then why not pop it in the comments box below, and you may well feature on an upcoming episode of The Plain Truth.